Welcome, healthcare students and curious learners everywhere, to this explainer. Today, we're tackling what I like to call the ultimate puzzle of human behavior: personality. Seriously, have you ever wondered why two patients with the exact same diagnosis might react in completely opposite ways? Or why you and your siblings can grow up in the exact same house, eat the exact same food, but have totally different outlooks on life? Well, that is the mystery of personality. So today, we're going to unpack the fascinating theories that explain what makes each and every one of us entirely unique. Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll start by defining the personality puzzle itself. Then we'll unpack Freud's psychodynamic theory, followed by humanistic and cognitive theories. And finally, we'll tackle the age-old debate of heredity versus environment. Let's jump right into section 1, defining the personality puzzle. Now, the absolute crucial point I want you to remember is that personality isn't just one single trait. It's not just whether you're outgoing or shy. It's actually a highly complex combination of your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors. It's how these three elements continuously interact to form those characteristic patterns that make you, well, you. Let's test that out right away. Which of the following best defines personality? Is it A, your physical appearance only, B, your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, C, your intelligence level, or D, your social status? I'll give you a second to lock in your answer. If you chose B, you nailed it. Thoughts, emotions, and behaviors form the foundational triad of pretty much all the psychological theories we're about to explore. Keep this combination in the back of your mind, because it's the lens through which we'll view the rest of this explainer. Moving right along to section 2, Freud's psychodynamic theory. So Sigmund Freud believed there's this intense internal conflict raging inside all of us. He basically divided the mind into three parts. First up is the id. Think of the id as a super impulsive toddler. It operates entirely on the pleasure principle, just demanding immediate satisfaction for whatever it wants. At the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have the superego, which acts as a really strict moral judge enforcing all of society's rules. And caught right in the middle, trying to keep the peace, is the ego. The ego operates on the reality principle. Its entire job is to act as a pragmatic problem solver, trying to balance the chaotic desires of the id with the strict morality of the superego. It is quite a juggling act. Time for a quick pop quiz. Based on that internal tug-of-war we just talked about, which part of personality operates on the reality principle? A, id, B, ego, C, superego, or D, libido? Think about which one acts as the realistic mediator. Exactly, it's B, the ego. The ego is that realistic anchor that helps us actually function in society without giving in completely to our wild impulses or being totally paralyzed by guilt. Now, what's really interesting is how Freud tracked personality development sequentially across time. He believed our personality was largely set by childhood experiences through 5 distinct psychosexual stages. In infancy, we have the oral stage, where pleasure mostly comes from the mouth, like babies sucking their thumbs. Next is the anal stage in toddlerhood, which is heavily focused on the control learned during toilet training. Then comes the phallic stage in early childhood, followed by the latency stage during those early school years, where the focus shifts outward to developing friendships. And finally, from adolescence onward, we enter the genital stage. According to Freud's theory, getting stuck or fixated in any of those early stages is what actually shapes our adult personality. Let's see if you caught the key milestone there. During which stage does toilet training become culturally and psychologically important? A, oral stage, B, anal stage, C, latency stage, or D, genital stage? Yup, it's B, the anal stage. Freud argued that the way a child experiences toilet training conceptually impacts their lifelong behavioral habits, dictating whether they become, say, overly controlling or completely disorganized later in life. But what happens when life just gets way too stressful for the ego to handle? Well, the ego uses these unconscious strategies called defense mechanisms to reduce anxiety and basically protect the mind. Some of the major ones include denial, projection, regression, rationalization, sublimation, and displacement. For instance, imagine a nurse who gets unfairly reprimanded by an attending physician. They can't exactly yell back without risking their job, right? So the ego uses displacement. They bottle up that anger, go home, and shout at their partner instead. They've unconsciously shifted that anxiety to a much safer target. Let's try applying this to a scenario you might actually see in your program. Imagine a healthcare student fails a practical exam and immediately blames the evaluator's harsh greeting style, instead of just admitting they didn't practice the physical assessment enough. Which defense mechanism is at play here? Is it A, sublimation, B, projection, C, regression, or D, intellectualization? The answer is B, projection. By projecting their own insecurities and failures onto someone else, in this case, the evaluator, their mind protects itself from the painful reality of their own shortcomings. It's a classic defense mechanism for sure. All right, let's pivot to Section 3, Humanistic and Cognitive Theories. So, humanistic theories emphasize personal growth, free will, and self-actualization. Psychologists like Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers fundamentally disagreed with Freud's really pessimistic view. They believed humans aren't just driven by dark, unconscious urges. Instead, they argued we actually have free will and this inherent positive drive to reach our absolute highest potential, which they called self-actualization. They really focused on how positive regard and personal growth shape who we become. It's a much more optimistic perspective. Let's test your memory on one of the most famous models in all of psychology. Who developed the hierarchy of needs, that famous pyramid framework that leads all the way up to self-actualization? Is it A, Sigmund Freud, B, Albert Bandura, C, Abraham Maslow, or D, Carl Rogers? If you guessed C, Abraham Maslow, you are right on the money. Maslow's hierarchy is a brilliant contribution to understanding human motivation. It shows that we absolutely must fulfill our basic survival needs before we can achieve our unique, self-actualized personality. Building on that focus on the conscious mind, we have Albert Bandura's social cognitive theory. Bandura argued that personality actually develops through our continuous interaction with the world around us. First, there's observational learning, which means we develop traits simply by watching and imitating the role models in our lives. Then there's self-efficacy, which is our belief in our own abilities. Ultimately, Bandura believed our personality is an active, ongoing feedback loop, an environment-behavior interaction where our surroundings shape us and our behavior simultaneously shapes our surroundings. It's a two-way street. And that brings us to Section 4, Heredity versus Environment. This is the ultimate showdown. On one side, we have heredity, or nature, the DNA and genetic traits handed down directly from our parents. On the other side is environment, or nurture, our family dynamics, our social experiences, and the physical environments that shape us. So, which one wins? Well, research, especially twin studies, proves that genetics are incredibly powerful in establishing our baseline traits. However, as we just learned from Bandura, our continuous daily experiences, our environment, mold, suppress, or amplify those genetic traits into our final behaviors. So it's never really just one or the other. Personality is quite literally always the product of both heredity and experience interacting together. And that brings us to our final question for you to ponder today. If personality is shaped by this incredible mix of unconscious drives, continuous learning, our physical environment, and our very DNA, how are you going to use this complex puzzle to better understand the next patient you treat, or even just the next person you meet? Take some time to reflect on how these theories shape human behavior in your everyday clinical settings. Keep these thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in mind, because in our next explainer, we're going to be diving into the Big Five model of personality to see how we can actually measure these traits. Thanks for learning with me today, and keep exploring the puzzle.